Hello everyone, I'm Sage Ash, the writer, director, cinematographer, and editor for Peyton's Place. Starting from the top, as writer, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, but it wasn't until I did some heavy research, watched a short film called Removed, and got really great inspiration for what I figured out what my passion in this story was going to be. And it was going to be to tell a story that sheds light on people and children who grow up in homes that are abusive, that deal with alcoholism and drug addicts. And I suddenly became very passionate about this project, and one of the reasons for that was because this story is actually inspired by true events. It's based off the life of my best friend and younger cousin, Destiny Steinbach, who grew up in a household very similar and actually much worse than what is shown on this. So a lot of the scenes and the events that take place throughout this film are actually based on true events that happened to her. As director, essentially my role is kind of constant throughout the whole thing. I have a lot of pre-production work in the sense of that I create and kind of look over and I figure out how I want to shoot this and mark up my script, build a shot sheet, think about the equipment I want to use in order to create the visual process that I am looking for. I always arrive to my set 2 hours early, an hour before my main crew. So prep time and preparing and making sure we're completely ready to go that day is important, which is why there's many days that I was there at 5 in the morning when we didn't start shooting till probably about 8. Some things that you'll see within the film that I chose as the director to add to build towards it, there's a lot of intentional design. If you'll see in the aunt and uncle scene, flowers and kind of like almost like girlish type things, if you'll see, it's just kind of built into their home, and it's very subtle. But if you notice, like on the fridge as well as to the right side of the uncle, there are pinks and blues and kind of purples, as well as the purple kind of flower on the center. I wanted to bring in those colors because that's actually the color and colors that represent infertility awareness, as well as I wanted to keep from having really any greens because green resembles fertility. And so because in this scene it's a big important part of the movie where she talks about her being unable to conceive and being infertile, I wanted to build that even into the film and develop that even further. And even little things that you'll see on the fridge are actually tidbits. You can't really tell, but there's actually drawing from Peyton to her aunt that we made and put on there, as well as snapshots from like actually one of the other films that I worked on. So there's attention to detail that I put into this film to build this real life aspect and theme throughout it. And also as the director, there was a very important thing with finding the talent, the exact people that I wanted and needed, and I did a lot of casting calls. One of the biggest roles, obviously, to fill was Peyton. We took on a challenge in this film in having our main lead be a child actress. We needed somebody who was passionate, who was willing to work hard, and who came with a great family to support us behind it, and that was Miss Megan Whiteley. Megan showed up every day, early, on time, killed it every single day, and literally blew me away. And there were several days where it was very emotional, very hard. In the sled scene, you'll see when she's dragging her and she just brings this emotional performance at the end of it. Like nearly everyone was crying. She started crying. There's just a lot of emotion that was put into this, that was delved into, especially in the ripping of the bear scene. Those tears are completely real. She's an amazing actress. She felt that. She knows the emotion that I needed from her, and she delivered it every single time. As well as like the other actors and actresses I had on the set completely made this film. James Rao, Presley Lovins, but the mother and father did a fantastic job, as well as Miss Diamond Smith and Joshua Thomas. All these people who really came together, worked hard, and made this film. It was a painstaking process to decide who we wanted to be in it, and they did not disappoint. As a cinematographer, I had to balance being able to pull myself out of the director role and the cinematographer role and look at them separately, because they are there was a lot of different things that I originally had wrote on my shot sheet that I completely scrapped and changed. I actually decided to go a different route after researching a little more heavily and watching things a little more detailed in films that had to do kind of with topics like this. As a cinematographer, I actually decided to shoot it a little differently. I did a lot of things that were handheld, as well as there's a lot of things that you'll notice, clips that are wider and longer and hold. I wanted it to be very emotional and very raw in order to engage the audience in that way. I felt that there needed to be longer shots and longer takes. In order to do that, you'll notice that there was different things that I did throughout the film that enhance that, like moving the camera and following the actors instead of just holding it and cutting it to another take. So, as cinematographer, obviously I was also camera operator with it, so in order to enhance this film and make it the best it could be, some of the things that I chose to do was work with a camera I've never worked before, which is the FS7. So I took about 2 to 3 weeks prior to this and was taught how to operate it. So I learned, as well as my other camera operator, Trish Barnes, we learned together on how to operate this, so we were confident on set when we walked on, knowing what we need to do and how to operate that film. I also chose to shoot in S-Log 3. That essentially was why I had it colored the way I did and why I hired a colorist, a professional colorist myself. He worked heavily with me in order to develop it and create it to what I wanted it to be, and it turned out beautiful thanks to him, as well as thanks to the time and research that I took to understand S-Log 3 in order to shoot it properly. I was also the editor for the film's Peyton's Place, and I can say that I definitely invested well over 40 to 60, definitely probably more hours into editing. The whole process from start to finish was very time consuming, very tedious. There was a lot that had to be put together, a lot that had to be done, especially since going from over the summer where I wrote it and I saw my film going, and I definitely changed a lot along the way as the director and cinematographer, which then affected how I would edit it in the end. As well as there's a bunch of different, sometimes footage where different things didn't go the way I wanted, and how to manipulate that and how to edit it in post so that what you originally would have seen actually in certain clips aren't what it is. And one of them, I actually had to take it in and move it and even bring some things into After Effects to either add light on or to affect the angle, because we couldn't reshoot, so we had to work with what we had. But in the end, it came out wonderful and beautiful, and part of that editing process was even traveling up north to edit with my colorist, because obviously he had to overlay the color on my film. So we worked together for several hours up till about like 1 in the morning together, just making sure that everything was exactly how we wanted it to be. And the film came out beautiful, but it took a lot of painstaking work to get it there. Also helped my audio technician, sound mixer, Miss Amy Cash, with Foleying. We went out and had to Foley several scenes. There are abuse scenes in this film which needed the sound effect that I didn't want to get online. I wanted to make it sound real, and the closest thing to kind of human flesh and skin that is pork. So we went out and bought some raw pork, some cabbage, and different kinds of meat and vegetables in order to give the sound effects we wanted. Like we had to punch a lettuce cabbage to give the effect of a nose breaking. We as well went out to different things. You'll see actually the scene with her in the shed is completely Foley. None of that audio is from that night at all. It's not her, it's actually me. And we had to watch a video over and over again in order to match her movements and match her sounds that she made. So there was a lot of work that was also done in that. But this film overall was one of the most liberating things I've ever done. I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of my cast and my crew. They literally, without them, none of this would have happened. And without the work and passion I had towards this film, it obviously wouldn't have happened. So this film is one of the most amazing things, and I think the best thing that I have made in my time here at Valdosta State, and I'm very excited and very proud of it and can't wait to see how far it goes. So this is the writer, director, cinematographer, and editor of Peyton's Place, Miss Sage Ash, signing off.